Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another Destiny 2 video, and today, it's been a little while since I last dove into Destiny's lore. Before Destiny 2 launch, we began exploring some of the stories behind noteworthy characters and key events that took place leading up to today. But now that things have calmed down a bit, and now that a large majority of us have experienced what Destiny 2 has to offer, I want to take some time to talk about some of the big lore-related questions and, where possible, provide some answers or insight based on information that's available to us. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated, and be sure to comment down below, let me know what you guys think, and if you have any questions. Now to begin with, let's kick things off at number 1 with Calais. How did he come to be in the position he is, and what exactly are his intentions? Well, let's start at the top with the big man himself. Calais' story actually goes back quite a way. Some years prior to the invasion of the solar system, Calais led a revolution to eject the military aristocracy known as the Praetoriate, and in doing so he became the Emperor. Under his rule, he helped redistribute Praetoriate wealth to the people, granted citizenship to the Imperial Legions, and even took care of various alien threats, so all up, doing a pretty decent job. However, during his reign, he grew wary of one of his generals, Umanarath, who was obsessively fixated on war, and his own daughter grew up with a very similar focus. That aside, outside of his Emperor duties, one of his main pleasures was the Colosseum, hence the reason for the gold-plated palace atop the Leviathan, the arena-like games, etc. And one day, an albino gladiator named Gaul made his first appearance in the Colosseum. The skills he displayed caught Calais' attention, and eventually he made him the Primus of the Red Legion, Primus being the Cabal term for a commander of a legion. Over the years, Calais grew to love Gaul as a son, and Gaul's association with the Consul did leave Calais a little worried, but it's never something he actually acted upon. However, he was right to have his suspicions, since Gaul was actually organising a coup behind his back with the Consul, some of Calais' closest friends, Umanarath, Sheotet, Oztot, to name a few. Given the Emperor's popularity, Gaul wasn't able to simply execute him where he stood though, so instead, his Red Legion and the Consul arrested him and a number of his supporters and exiled them aboard the Leviathan. The Leviathan was then set on a pre-programmed course, and for some time Calais was left to just follow the path, until one day the Leviathan came across an expanse of nothingness, a void, which resulted in the navigation systems on the Leviathan shorting out, and the course set by Gaul and the conspirators was disrupted. Staring into the void, Calais began to believe that he was chosen, and that this was his opportunity to regain control of his own fate. With the Leviathan now under his control, he set out on a voyage throughout space, visiting strange locations, forming alliances with alien races he once fought against, such as the Clips and the Sindhu. It was soon after that he set a course for the Sol, since the Red Legion were planning their assault. He attempted to have Gaul assassinated by his elite champions, the Shadows, and while that was ultimately unsuccessful, in the process he did learn of the Guardians. Following Gaul's defeat, Calais put plans into motion to begin reclaiming his empire. He gave the Red Legion a chance to join his loyalist regime, and sent them to investigate Nessus. This is the part where in-game, if you completed that adventure, Invitation from the Emperor, it sheds light on his intentions. The intention was to grind up the planet and turn the soil into royal wine. And while that process was ultimately halted, our victory over Gaul earned us the invitation aboard his ship. Completing his trials and coming face to face with his robot stand-ins, Calais claims to know the real truth about the galaxy, likely due to his interaction with the Void. And upon defeating one of his many robot bodies, he extends an invitation to join him should we seek him out. Now obviously that's as far as it goes in-game. The whereabouts of his real body, his real self, is currently a mystery. Whether it's somewhere else in the palace or somewhere else entirely is something we may never know. Perhaps given the events still to come in Destiny, there may come a time when we have little choice but to call upon his aid. But for now, that is Calais' story and his journey thus far. Next up, moving on from there to number 2. Quick note for the PC players out there, or any of you guys that have yet to finish the campaign, if you haven't seen the scene at the end of the credits and you don't want to be spoiled, then now would be a good time to look away. But assuming that you're still here, then let's talk about this section, these ships. What are they, who are they, and what does this mean for the future? Well, let's just begin by saying the exact answer is still a mystery. There are some obvious theories, which we will discuss in just a second, but it's also important to understand that until Bungie decide to tell this portion of the story, there's still a certain degree of stuff up in the air, but let's talk about what it most likely is. First up, this moment right here, this is a pivotal moment in Destiny's story and history. Up until this point, the Traveller has been dormant. It's always been there, in the background, we've always had a connection with it, but beyond that, it's had seemingly little involvement, until now. This right here is the moment that the Traveller finally woke up. While still not 100%, I mean it is quite clearly in a bit of a state, the actions of Gaul and his Red Legion obviously prompted this action. And in doing so, not only was Gaul stopped from achieving his godlike status he'd been chasing, but the Traveller's presence, the light, was spread throughout the solar system and beyond. We see the light pass through the reef, past Saturn, and into the deepest reaches, which leads us onto the topic at hand, these pyramid ships. This isn't the first time we've seen these. Back in 2013, Bungie shared some concept art that we have for a long time been curious about. They were described back then as giant onyx pyramid ships. but they also said back then that they weren't ready to speak about them, but they may do one day. However, pair that with this piece of concept art which shows 5 enemy races, the first 4 quite obviously being Vex, Fallen, Cabal and Hive. Meanwhile the 5th, those are not Taken, since the Taken are a little different, they're repurposed enemies from existing races. While again not clearly called out, it seems most logical that this 5th race could, in fact, be the Darkness. Note the triangle-like shapes, perhaps representing their vessels, and their interesting formless appearance. Very little is known about the Darkness, what it is, what its intentions are. It has always been said that the Darkness is the evil counterpart to the Light, a narrative pushed strongly by the Speaker, who we also learned during the campaign doesn't actually speak for the Traveller. It was his disciple Osiris who spent time researching that supposed evil, likely in an attempt to try and prove that the universe isn't as black and white as we may have been led to believe. So, returning once more to these ships, it seems most logical that these are most likely related to the Darkness. They're not Hive ships, that's for sure, and given their activation coincided with the awakening of the Traveller, it makes sense. Where there is light, there is darkness, 2 sides of the same coin. The Traveller and the Darkness have supposedly done battle for all eternity, so with it now back in play, it seems that so too is the Darkness. Quite how soon we'll find out their true purpose will of course remain to be seen. I feel like we're going to get the post-credit teasers like this over the next couple of expansions, and that will ultimately lead to a bigger Taken King style expansion which might tell the next huge chunk. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. So with that somewhat cleared up, let's move over to number 3 and talk about Osiris. Given the focus on the DLC due to drop later this year, most likely December, what do we currently know about Osiris and his whereabouts? Well, to recap a little bit of Destiny 1 lore, just so you guys have some context, Osiris first started out as a disciple of the Speaker. He was a well-respected warrior following the Battle of the Six Fronts, and as such, Saint 14 recommended him to the Speaker. He became his apprentice for some time, but at the same time he sought answers. He wanted to know the true purpose of the Guardians and the nature of the Darkness. Some of his theories were considered borderline blasphemous, and he diverted Guardian resources away from the tower in search of his own answers. He prophesied the coming of Arekkz, and perhaps more interesting than that, supposedly came close to understanding the Vex. His obsession with these subjects, especially the Vex, left the Speaker with no choice but to exile him. He feared that his obsession with the Vex could be likened to Tolan the Shatter's obsession with the Hive. So a cult formed around Osiris, his brothers, one of whom we encountered in Destiny 1, our point of contact for Trials of Osiris, Brother Vance, and together they tested the limits of the light, tried to see how far it could be bent before it broke. During his quest for answers and his continual studies of the Vex, Osiris seemed to have vanished, with his brothers claiming that he is both alive and dead, which sounds a little confusing until you think about his role in Destiny 2. Thanks to the confirmation of the first DLC, we know that the Curse of Osiris will have us attempting to rescue Osiris from the Vex network. The exact description reads, journey through time and space to learn the secrets of Osiris, avert a dark future, and rebuild ties between the legendary Warlock and his greatest student, Ikora Rey. Related to this, if you've done the adventure on Nessus called Deep Conversation, then you'll recall there's a conversation when connecting to the Vex network with Osiris, or at least mention of him. The final lines of the adventure read, your query has terminated, Ghost. The Vex Collective hopes it has answered your questions. A user within the network named Osiris sends his regards, to which the Ghost says, oh, Ikora definitely needs to hear about this. It's not clear at this point how he ended up where he did, but it seems whilst within the network he has some degree of control, the ability to send messages from within. But more importantly, what has he learned whilst there? The Vex are, after all, one of Destiny's most interesting enemy races, a race of cybernetic, time-travelling war machines that we still have much to learn about. And while I can't provide the answers just yet, since that's the purpose of the DLC, that does at least help establish Osiris for those of you that are out of the loop, his backstory and his current whereabouts, somewhat. Now, another interesting question at number 4, one I've seen a lot of people ask, and that is what happened to Eris Morn? Where does she go? Is she dead, and will she return? Well, to answer that, or at least most of that, we can actually draw from 2 interesting pieces of lore. The first one came at the end of Destiny 1, a ghost fragment for Eris Morn from Age of Triumph, and the second one comes from a Titan mark in Destiny 2, the Genshin Knights. The Age of Triumph ghost fragment tells a story between Eris and someone we came to meet on Io in Destiny 2, Ashen Mir. I won't recite the entire Grimoire card, but the top level summary is that Ashen Mir was admitted to the medbay in the tower following an incident that left him with a Vex arm in place of his own. Eris Morn was present at his bedside while he was recovering, and the Grimoire card documents the moment that she had to leave. The most interesting part being when she says, I must find a new path through the night. The Hive are vast and ancient, a power from far beyond our realm. If we are to ever truly face them, ever truly to put an end to their hate, I must step beyond the safety of the city. Be safe, Genshin Scribe, a storm is coming, and I will not be at your side when it finds its way to our shores. And then to complement that, there's the follow-up that comes as part of the lore for the Titan mark, Genshin Knights. Eris, I have scoured my library but found nothing on this Nokris of which you speak. I am sorry both for the delay and that I could not be of more help. The extract then tails off and Ashen Mir begins to ask Eris whether she ever feels any connection with the people that changed her, because he's starting to feel similar connections with the Vex based on his arm, but that's not exactly relevant at this point. What is important is that Eris appears to be off somewhere in search of this character known as Nokris. Now, not much is known about Nokris, but there is a statue in the Dreadnought near the altar of Arekkz. According to the Ghost, it's another hive god, but the glyphs were supposedly unrecognisable, so that much is still a mystery. As for whether Eris will return, I'm sure she will, in time, when Bungie are ready to tell the next chapter in the Hive story, but for now, it's safe to assume that she is, at least, still alive, and didn't get killed in the Cabal invasion. So finally, the last topic I want to touch on briefly, number 5, this one is more of an acknowledgement than an answer, since this is still a big mystery, one of the bigger mysteries out there, if you will, and will likely remain one for quite some time, but the sea monster on Titan. For those of you that haven't seen it, if you spend some time in the methane oceans on Titan, you can sometimes see the spines of a sea creature rise up above the waves. In addition to this, a Leviathan-like shadow can also be seen during the Utopia mission down in the Festering Halls. In short, there is something out there, something big. The honest truth is we have no idea what this thing is or even where it came about. It's unknown whether it's always been there or whether its arrival followed the onset of the Golden Age, but whatever it is, it's probably not something we want to pick a fight with at this point. I wish we had more to go on for this one, but in truth, outside of the fact that it's there, we don't really have any kind of extracts in game that might further clarify what it is. So we'll instead just leave this one as an open question. It's there, but what is its purpose? Maybe we'll never know, maybe we will, but only time will tell. So for now, that's pretty much it. That was just a roundup of some of the most interesting lore topics and questions I had having finished Destiny 2. Some answers are of course more concrete than others, but regardless, some interesting information to process, and stuff that we may well come to experience in future updates. In the meantime, if you have any questions, by all means let me know, but thanks very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.